Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Tonight's video, I'm going to be going over my latest build, which is this LMT 14.5 pin and wheel job. Now this rifle isn't a full-on LMT rifle, assembled by the factory. This was assembled by me somewhat, but I kind of feel it's about as LMT as you can get. To start with, started as an upper. Always wanted a 14.5. Actually, let me backtrack a little bit. I always did want to do a front sight post build with a quad rail on there. Started looking around a little bit. A couple of that with me always wanting to do a 14.5. I came across this LMT L7D1 upper from rooftopdefense.com. And, this is not I'm not sponsored by Rooftop in any way, just kind of give them some props. A lot of business, a lot of parts that I buy through them because they have a very good selection. And on top of that, if you use discount code ARFCOM, ARFCOM, it knocks like 8 or 10% off, something like that. And you don't have to be a member of AR15.com or any of that. You can just put that in a discount code and anybody will get that discount. So back to the gun. It started off as just the upper. So the L7D1, this is LMT's, as they advertise it, it's their version of an M4A1. You get their typical forged upper, and it comes as just a barrel assembly. So, or an upper assembly less the handguard. So what you get is you get the receiver, you get an LMT receiver. You get the barrel, 14.7. They don't say what profile it is, but it is not an M4 profile. Again, I don't know exactly what it is, but like I said, they spin it as being their, or they advertise it as saying it's their version of an M4A1. So again, you get a 14.5-inch barrel. Obviously has a front sight post / gas block attached. Also has the forward cap handguard retainer and the delta ring. So as that comes, no charging handle, no optics, anything like that, no bolt. So as that comes, I think that Rooftop was charging it's about 6 and change for it, low sixes. But putting in that discount code ARFCOM, like I mentioned, it brought it down to 5 and change. It's definitely, I figured that's a heck of a deal. You are getting an LMT barrel in it. So I went ahead and purchased it, and I purchased it with the intent of just moving it between two SBR lowers that I had. So between my LMT Marzell lower that I built out and have on my 12.5, or I could also run it on my Daniel Defense Mark 18 SBR lower. And with those color schemes, and again, I obviously, as you can see, I was going through a little bit of flat dark earth with this build as well. Between those two color schemes on each of those lowers, it worked well either way. One of the differences is that one of them had a law folder on it and one of them didn't, though that did eventually change as I ended up putting a flat dark earth law folder on my Mark 18 and moved the black one over to the 12.5 build, which I'm actually going to be taking off here tomorrow once I get another shipment from Rooftop Defense. It's just with the 12.5, for me, a law tactical folder, if it can't fit in the backpack, there's no point in having it on there. It just adds extra weight, close to a pound. So I will be taking it off. But anyway, so that was my whole purpose of this upper. Just have an upper receiver group that I would move back and forth between either or lower receiver. So as time would end up telling, I ended up wanting to do my 18-inch SPR, which I reviewed in a video months and months ago. That was utilizing the forward controls design, build upper receiver. Came across on Big Tech's Ordnance. They had the Sons of Liberty Gunworks collaboration with Forward Control Design billet lower. So it basically would be the match set, which I did go over in my last video. So you may also recognize this lower from that video. But I came across a blem. So I decided, hey, you know what? Let me just go ahead and make that match Forward Controls Design upper and lower billet receivers. And I will go ahead and make a dedicated Lewis machine and tool lower for my 14.5 upper. So when I was thinking about what I wanted to do with this build, again, I know I definitely want to do front side post, and I also wanted to do a quad rail, extended quad rail. Daniel's Defense has these, but I'm a huge fan of Centurion. Centurion, their C4 rail here. it accommodates a carbine gas system. I do believe they also make one if you have a mid-length gas system with a front side post. Found a great deal on this one here. Typically, I want to say they're about $330 if you order them through Centurion. I don't remember off the top of my head who I got this from. I really wish I could give them the props, but it was on sale. It was only about $300. So getting the rail and the upper itself, I knew that was going to be my baseline. As far as a bolt carrier group, I was going to go with the uh, BCM Ion Bond FTE bolt carrier group, and I was running it in this thing, and I was good with that. I had this Troy flip backup iron sight in a spare parts bin, so I figured I could use that on this build here. For a charging handle, I did have the Geisley Airborne charging handle. That was kind of in a spare parts build also, or spare parts bin, so I knew I had the parts for that. And then I was just trying to decide on the optic. So I was really super tempted to take the Vortex Razor 1-6 off my 12.5 and put it on this unit instead. And one of the reasons I decided not to do that was because the EOTech that I have on this one, which is the EXPS 2-2. So you have the donut of death reticle along with the center dot, and then you also have a holdover dot below it. That's supposed to be ranged for or pre-calibrated for 400 yards. Always very curious how accurate that was. And then I watched a previous YouTube video or a different YouTube video about a gentleman who's testing that out at the different ranges, and it was actually pretty much spot on. So decided to keep the EOTech or move the EOTech on this build along with the G45 magnifier, simply because I wanted to, for one, you have a front sight post build like this. I mean, in my opinion, if you put a optic that you can't utilize, let me backtrack a little bit. If I were to put the LPVO on this unit, you would have the front sight post in a way which it pretty much disappears, especially once you start zooming in on it. It just didn't seem the right application for this upper, so I decided to go with the EOTech. And I do really like the Unity riser. I do have one on my Mark 18. And I did think about going with the Unity riser with getting the Unity mount to go for the 226. But again, having the point of having a front sight post built, to me personally anyway, was to be able to co-witness sights if needed. You're not going to be able to do that with a Unity setup. So keeping it at lower third, which the EXPS model is, and of course adding the 7mm shim here. If I need to, I can flip this to the side, put the front sight base up, and I get a lower third co-witness through the EOTech itself. With that in consideration, along with the BDC holdovers that you have built into the 2.2, I figured that was a really good ideal setup for this 14.5. So that's the reason I decided to go with it. Obviously, I've got a Huxworks suppressor, so I had to get the suppressor mount for it. Of course, this is the flash hider with the 14.5. Their standard flash hider adds 1.7 inches to it, so this gets it right over the 16-inch legal limit mark once you pin and weld it. So that worked out perfectly. Didn't have to worry about getting the extended flash hider like I did on my 13.9 build. For weapon light, you see I went with the Arasaka body with the Melkov E2 XTL head, which is 500 lumens, 55,000 candela. Definitely very spotty, but I do love the Melkov heads. I've got the 100 Concepts light cap on here. Currently am running a Surefire UE, which is the simple socket, but I did from Midwest Optics. I just today ordered a Flat Dark Earth DS00. And then I'm running the Mod Button Mod Light. I think I am a huge fan of the Unity hot buttons, but the way that I grip this gun, I feel that the flatness of the Mod Button Light would work a lot better. So definitely be keeping this on there. Have thought about changing this one out to Flat Dark Earth, but spending $65-$70 or so just to have a Flat Dark Earth one, and just that's just not something I really care that much about. Centurion rail, again, super duper rail. I love Centurion's products. Besides this one, I also have one on my 18-inch. Simply utilizes a mil-spec barrel nut, clamps down around it, attaches here, 2 bolts on this side, 2 bolts on the other side, and then you have 2 more that connect to here and on here. definitely super rock solid. Really not that much heavy in weight. Um, definitely love it. So as you see for the ejection pole cover, I do love forward control design. I was able to get my hands on a twin nimble block, so went with that on this build. And I think that one of the things that I'm probably most excited about was that just recently I was able to, while I was using the BCM upper or BCM bolt carrier group, um, I did feel that, running a BCM, BCG, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. In an LMT gun, it just didn't feel right to me. So, had the opportunity on AR15.com's Equipment Exchange to come across a brand new LMT enhanced bolt carrier group. So, the enhanced bolt carrier group, or let me go back, say the bolt itself is the thing that's very much coveted. But the whole thing with the enhanced carrier group, which adds a third gas hole here for venting gases out of the side instead of in the shooter's face, coming back through where the back of the receiver the charging handle goes, does have a different path for the cam pin, so it stays locked longer. And then in addition to that, you can see that where the rails are here on the bolt carrier group, they are shorter. So kind of like where KAC and now Centurion have their sand cutter bolt. Um, this is, they say the same thing. It's to spread lubrication better and to also cut paths for the any kind of type of debris that may possibly get in there. So actually just got my hands on this one today. One thing that was a little bit surprising to me, and I wish I would have done a little bit more homework on it, though, being that I just got this today, I have not had a chance to go out and shoot this in this upper or any upper at all, was that, come to find out, the enhanced bolt carrier group, and I should say more specifically, the enhanced carrier, does not allegedly play well in every length barrel that you have in every different gas systems. They don't say anything about it on LMT's website. They just talk about how it's the most reliable BCG that you can get. Um, but apparently, it was designed strictly to revolve around the 14.5 and also shoot M855. Why just M855? I'm not sure, but allegedly, again, somebody pointed it out to me on one of the web forums today. Then I started searching for it, and come to find out, sure enough, some people have problems with it. Some people don't, and problems with that being in guns other than 14.5. So, while I did intend to put this in my 12.5, fortunately, I do have this 14.5, so I'll go ahead and utilize the enhanced bolt carrier group in this upper instead. Moving on to the lower receiver. So as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, this was the Mars L that I originally had on my 18-inch SPR. Only thing that's a little bit different about this is the receiver extension. So again, having the LMT built upper from between the upper receiver and barrel. And then as you can see, the magazine's empty here. Going with the Mars L, it's between the receivers, upper and lower, and the barrel and the BCG. That's the main components of the gun. Um, that I say I do now have a full LMT rifle with this build. I mean, not that's a huge deal, but it's not just some Frankenstein build paired together with different receivers or different barrels, whatever it may be. So I did want to switch a couple things out though with this. Originally in this lower receiver, since I had it in my 18-inch, I had a Geisley SSAE trigger. Went with the Geisley SSP. It's a single stage. I love this trigger a lot. So I had that switched out, going with a different grip. I had the OD Green B5 Systems P22 on that one, so I got the Coyote for that. And then this is actually the first build that I have tried out the forward controls design safeties. As you see this unit here, it's a standard, not the Q. You can reverse the long lever on whatever side you want it to be. So, I'm a left-handed shooter, so I have the long lever on this side, the shorter lever on the right-hand side. No upgrades to the mag release. And forward controls design does now make an ABCR that's got the rearward biased bolt release on there. I don't really feel that's needed on this one, so I haven't spent the money on that. And then when it came to picking the receiver extension, I was toying with the idea of going with an A5 system, especially with the 14.5. And one of the things that kind of I had some reserves about was that this was a 14.5 with a carbine gas system, not a mid gas system. From what I understand, what I've seen out there, a lot of the benefits that are seen from the A5 system, or I should say where most people pair them, is with mid-length gas. So I decided to just go kind of tried and true with this. Since I had carbine gas, I was going to go with a carbine receiver extension. This is the LMT gray receiver extension. Does have the tab down here for the buffer retaining pin, so you know you can't. It lets you know when you've screwed it in far enough. Um, Receiver extension went with went with a Spring-Coat Blue buffer spring. Spring-Coat Blues are about 15% stronger than the standard carbine spring. Forward controls designs, I think it's called the CNF. It's their castle nut. You kind of see the dimples on it, kind of give it away. One of the things that are the beneficial of this is that it gives you extra places to stake the castle nut. Now, what I did find, and since I went with the QDM plate here, this is the LMT QDM plate. You can't get 3 places to stick it. You can only do it 2, but again, that's still plenty much in my mind. For buffer, I had a spare primary weapon systems H2 buffer laying around, so that's what I used. Went with the forward controls design reinforced buffer retainer pin on that. For takedown pins and pivot pins, I typically go with the Geisley's. Geisley's Super Precision Stainless, I believe is what they're called. Don't really, thought about getting the forward control designs one, but for $17 for the Geisley's, they're dimpled on the side of them, so it makes it easier to push it out if you use a bullet tip or whatnot. Already had the LMT winter trigger guard on here, so there's nothing needed to change out there. So I believe that's about it for the lower receiver. And just quickly, a couple accessories that I didn't mention that I have on here. Obviously, for vertical foregrip, I have on the Tango Down stubby. Definitely really love this grip. For the rail covers, I did go ahead and decide to go with the flat dark earth ones and give it a little bit of contrast to the black quad rail that's on there. I think it looks really sharp. These aren't even the official ones made by Ergo or Magpul. These are like cheap ones they got off of eBay. I think you get like a whole pack of them for like $6 or something like that. But I got them on Mark 18 also. They've worked well. And then for wire management, I got the Ergo wire loom. As you see here, it looks like just another one of the ladder covers, but it has little clips on there to help control your wires. I have these in a couple other guns, and definitely have been very happy with them. So I think that's about it. I have not shot this gun with this lower on here yet. I did go out into the range and shoot it with my son. And when we went out there, we were using the LMT Marzell with the Law Tactical folder from my 12.5. Functioned very well. I was curious to see how gassy it was going to be. I have a friend of mine that has an LMT front sight post 11.5-inch build, and that thing is crazy over gas. Using a standard AR-15 bolt carrier group when we shot it, and it was a while ago, but I think back in January that we shot it. That thing was ejecting at like 1:30, 2 o'clock. So definitely super gassy. I was pleasantly surprised to see that when I did take this out, it had a nice even ejection pattern, about 4:30. Drop a quick video in here showing my son shooting it. But I really, really dig this rifle. This may end up becoming my new travel gun. At least when I'm driving on the road. I do like to carry my Mark 18 in my backpack if I'm going in and out of hotel rooms, and obviously I'm not going to be bringing a rifle bag with me then. But definitely love it. It was a great shooter when we went out and shot it last. Fired very well unsuppressed and suppressed, although at least with my can, with the Huxworks flow-through can, there's not a lot of difference between running it suppressed or unsuppressed. So, but benefits of being pin and welded, it's not on an SBR lower, so I don't have to worry about any type of interstate travel laws or anything like that. I can just bring it where I want. And 14.5, it is definitely a great barrel length. maintain some of that velocity that you need, or that 55 grain needs in order to fragment reliably. And it still feels very, very handy. Definitely not as handy as my Mark 18, but still very much more handy over feeling a 16-inch rifle, at least when you're maneuvering inside a house. But like it a lot. So any of you who are interested in following a similar path, mainly with the upper, go check out Rooftop Defense. I don't think they currently have any in stock now, but sign up for email alerts, or if you can find other ones out there. Definitely a very great upper. LMT definitely makes some very, very solid stuff. I will say though that when I mounted the rail, since this does come with the front handguard receiver cap and the Delta ring, in order to get those off, you do need to break loose the gas block / front side post, and break loose the barrel nut and pull the assembly out in order to move it appropriately. The pins that they use on their front side posts, gas blocks, they are in there like flint. I tried everything I could to get them to budge. They would not. So I had to resort to using a Dremel. Now, cutting through the Delta ring and the spring, simple enough. Getting the front handguard cap off, it's a little bit more of a challenge, but even with the instructions for the Centurion's Arms handguard itself, they tell you can just snap lines on each side of that cap and then just twist them back and forth with a pair of pliers till it breaks off. It did work very well. So again, I realize the right way of doing it would be breaking everything loose, but I could not get this front sight base pins out to save my life. So that's the review of my 14.5 LMT build. Hopefully, it can help some people out there, especially if you're toying around with different ideas for a 14.5, or looking for a 14.5 upper. As usual, definitely appreciate everybody's views and feedback that I receive. Thank you very much. Have a good one.